We finally crossed the finish line for the year, and that means it's time to talk about all of the anime that aired in the fall season. Since there's a lot to cover this season, we can go ahead and dive right into the shows that have made their return for additional runs. First off, we have Spy Family Season 2, a show I had a good time watching, picking up where it left off last season and improving in my opinion. I really liked the opening and the ending, which was actually a common theme in a large portion of the anime this season. I won't dive into the plot too much here since I spoke about it in my video recap of last anime season, which I'll have linked at the video here. Other shows that are returning are My Hero Academia, back for its 6th season. I really enjoyed it this time around as it leapt straight into the action from the start, and we are seeing the consequences of all of the actions, plans, laws, and events come to fruition. The animation has kept up with the action in every way. The show also developed some of the more important minor characters, which has heightened my appreciation of the show. And if you don't know how to appreciate what you have before it's gone, To Your Eternity has returned to remind you of all of the emotions you want to continue to suppress. I will say, I was expecting a bit more out of this season, but so far it hasn't been a bad journey. This anime is definitely a slow burn narrative, watching an immortal being learning how to become human. And with the story created by the same person as a silent voice, well, we know it won't be light on them feels. This entire season was a character development arc for Fushi, but it also fills out the world for the time period that Fushi's in currently, which has been enjoyable. Overall, I thought the series would blow me away, but now I'm just kind of in it for the sunk cost. Something else that isn't taken lightly is the death of a team member, which Brainsbase has had to deal with, which has sent Golden Kamuy on a hiatus until spring 2023. It's tragic news to hear this, and also a great loss that we get less Golden Kamuy this season than we originally thought. I adore this series, and if you haven't watched it, you need to get on it. It's a historical action comedy with no shortage of anything that's great and enjoyable. This unique show will have you kicking and screaming and laughing and pissing and crying. It's one of my favorite shows of all time, and I really think you should get watching it. If you haven't already, you've got a good time to start catching up now. And another beloved series returning for its final season, Mob Psycho 100. Known for its over-the-top effort put in by the animation staff and the hand-drawn fight scenes full of sakuga in this coming-of-age tale, with this 3rd season, Mob Psycho has reached the narrative conclusion. It was a wonderful journey from beginning to end and provided some stellar moments throughout its run. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to mention Season 3 and that it was as fantastic as you would expect from the Mob Psycho brand. If you haven't watched this yet, you should definitely have it on your list. And the last show that I watched that's returning is arriving in style after many years on hiatus, Bleach. I recently watched the actual series so I could pick it up with the 1,000-Year Blood War when it started. My format for these videos are usually anime that end in the season, and with this one set to finish next year, I'll give it like a final overall look through then, but for now, I can say I'm extremely impressed with the show, and I'm glad I caught up with it. They divided this show into segments on my anime list, or cores, I guess if you want to call it, but I'll be keeping the score consistent for all of the parts, and for right now, it's looking pretty solid. I might not have the nostalgia factor that everybody else had whenever they watched Bleach when they were younger, since I watched it, in 2022, but I still am really impressed with the 1,000-Year Blood War arc that's airing currently, and I did enjoy a lot of Bleach for the moments that it had and can really appreciate the history that it's brought to the anime scene. But that's enough about the past, and now we can jump into the real meat of the season, the new shows. Fall 2022, for me, has a lot more worthwhile sequels than new content. Actually, I was only considering watching 2 shows at the beginning of the season, Blue Lock and Chainsaw Man. If you keep up with the channel, you will already know that I made a video about Chainsaw Man and how I was unimpressed by its first half of the run, but the other half, it improved, but it also hasn't convinced me that it's the best anime of this season. But not for the lack of it being good, but rather I just watched more. The sample size of shows that I was going to watch was actually going to be really small, but once I got recommendations from other members of the anime community on what shows I did need to watch that were airing now, boy was I impressed by what I ended up seeing. And before we move on to the more controversial section where I name the best anime of the season, I can say that I finally did give my first Gundam a go. And I've seen Mecha before, and I've seen anime made by Sunrise, but I've never seen a Gundam. I was aware of the show because my favorite J-pop band did the opening, but I was told to check it out as an intro to the Gundam franchise. Needless to say, I'm now acquiring the Yoasobi collab Gunpla, and I have actually really enjoyed the show. I'm quite surprised on how easy it was for me to jump in, and I only had a few questions that I had to ask more experienced members of the genre that it turned out not mattering for the questions that I had anyways to watch the show. And I actually see a lot of similarities between this and Legend of the Galactic Heroes type of narrative direction that's kind of a Game of Thrones space opera-esque vibe. And that's really good for me anyways. I know a lot of people are sleeping on this show since it's part of the Gundam franchise, but they are fools like me. So I would say give it a chance and hop on in and let me know what you guys think. And I also do have a show that you guys don't really need to spend your time on. Do It Yourself was, it aired this season. I mean, I can't say much. It was just another comfy show of the likes of Eurocamp, it's a good chill show, but it's nowhere near the level of Eurocamp or Laid Back Camp, if you call it that. Do It Yourself is about a clumsy girl joining the DIY club and trying to rekindle the friendship with her neighbor/childhood friend while making new friends and things along the way. If this is your genre, give it a look, otherwise there's really no need. And now this is it. The best new anime of the season is, in my opinion, a choice between Blue Lock and Chainsaw Man and Bocchi the Rock. Personally, the show I enjoyed the most was Blue Lock because I love some good competition. Not to say that any show was worse for an objective reason, but rather than I just looked forward to seeing Blue Lock the most each week out of all of the other shows. Not to mention that it got me more into the World Cup since Team Japan had jerseys inspired by Blue Lock. The action and build-up in each episode are so exciting, reminiscent of what My Hero was doing this season. It being a sports anime was also just a plus for me, as I'm a big fan of Haikyuu and Chihaya Furu, and I'm tolerant of March Comes In Like a Lion, which that one is probably the least sports anime out of the three of those. Most people will say that fall was the season of Chainsaw Man, however, I was pretty disappointed overall with it, start to finish, compared to the hype that it had. Like I mentioned in my previous video, Chainsaw Man was suffering from a lack of depth to an extent, and there could have been more world building, and that held true to the end of the season's runtime. It still looked nice, and I enjoyed the characters, and I loved the different endings for each episode. And I get that it's more of a prologue to the main story, and I'm really excited to see where the series goes next. Not to say that Chainsaw Man was bad, it was honestly just impossible for it to live up to the hype that it had coming into the season, but overall, I still have to pass on the title of Best Anime of the Season to our remaining option. Bocchi the Rock was the best show in all aspects, in my opinion. Originally, this was a show that was under my radar, but with insistence from many directions, I gave it a chance and I'm very glad I did. The directing is second to none for all of the other shows that aired. The synergy of the cast and overall understanding of the topic at hand, which is the life of a social outcast that can only interact with their audience through YouTube, but not face to face. Thanks to those of you who leave comments, it really makes me feel less alone. There are many reasons to love Bocchi the Rock, from the cast of introverts and extroverts, and I will commit war crimes with Rio and nothing will stop us but ourselves, to the thoughtful expressions on why the world will end if you smile at the wrong person. With one of the most relatable protagonists for all the introverts out there, Bocchi has been somewhat of a dark horse this season, rising in popularity very quickly after it started. All sorts of people were telling me to get on it, and they absolutely had a point. This isn't a K-On! Copy and paste, but rather a new entry to the moe blob genre that will probably serve as the point of reference for shows going forward. This anime about a girl with extreme social anxiety who wants to play in a band has some unique reaction faces that are better than the Anya ones this season, in my opinion. The staff definitely had fun making this, and I had a great time watching it. Bocchi definitely has earned its spot amongst the top shows of this season, and I highly recommend checking it out. So kind of wrapping things up, the summary of my top picks would be Golden Kamuy, Bleach, and Mob Psycho 100. And then for the new shows, it would be Bocchi the Rock, Chainsaw Man, and Blue Lock. Probably in that order, honestly. Now that we are done with the new shows of 2022, the only thing left is the Anime Awards. I'll live stream that, I think, on my Twitch, twitch.tv/greatestmuffin. And upload a VOD here, or I may just make a short video going through them, as well as mentioning some of my favorite shows of this entire year. Anyways, now that I'm about 6 months into making videos, I hope I've gotten the word out there on some anime that you found you might want to watch, or did in fact watch. Let me know what your favorite show this season was, and why I was a fool to not think it was Chainsaw Man.